Hello, YouTube.
Hi, YouTube. It's like 3 a.m. in the morning and Brandon's still making fun of me.
We're going to let you get to it and let you enjoy this recap of the weekend. Like and subscribe, like and subscribe, like and subscribe. See, Smith, we got through our annual game just fine.
Yeah, I have noticed that in the last 2 years, it's much more pleasant for the podcast.
I'd like to make an announcement.
When you win.
No, I don't think that's it.
I think it is.
Well, the first two times we had bets and I ended up losing. So, yeah, that was bad. But let's be honest with the people. I think like we got to this year's game and our personal relationship is as strong as it's ever been. Like we couldn't get mad at each other.
That is true. It is true. I said that to, I think I was texting Katie maybe. Well, I know I was texting Katie. Katie has been dealing with my bullshit all day. But I can't remember who I said it to. It was like, it's really hard to ramp up the hate for Brandon when I love Brandon so much. And I'm not just saying that for this podcast. Like right now, we're the closest we've ever been. And it's like, how can I be mad at you when I already know my team stinks?
When's it going to turn, you think?
Oh, it'll turn, I'm sure. I mean, every relationship does. But it also, like, you guys lost to LSU. Like we had already lost. So it's like, if this was like a top 10 matchup or something, and it was like, who's going to be first in our division, I felt like it might be different. But listen, I feel like we have grown as people. I feel like we have grown as podcast co-hosts and whatever else, big brother, big sister, baby daddy, baby mama. I don't know, whatever people want to say we are.
Yeah. That
translated today. We're so mature.
The next time we do hate each other, it's going to be rough.
Yes. It's when you get really close and you love each other.
Yeah.
The hate hits harder.
It's going to be bad.
We did it. We made it.
We made it. Remember when we argued in the offseason and you said that A&M had a better team and program than Mississippi State?
See, this is what I'm talking about. Don't do this. Take your win gracefully.
That's my only one.
And you know what? Fair shot. But I said this when we were streaming. By the end of that game, I'm so apathetic to it. It was so bad. It was so gross that you can't hurt me tonight. You can't.
All right, we'll see. We have a lot of other football in the world we're going to get to. We got Georgia looking bad. We got Oklahoma gross. This week is going to be the good, the bad, and the humbled, because I think a lot of teams, this was humbling Saturday. That's what we got coming up. Let's get ready to do a show. Hello and welcome to High Noon Hard Seltzer sponsors Unnecessary Roughness. There you go. I kind of saved it. I skipped a little bit. It's late. It's Saturday night. These Saturday night shows can get a little haywire quickly. Welcome to Unnecessary Roughness, presented by High Noon Hard Seltzer. Hey, Kayce Smith.
Hi. I was going to see how you got out of that. I was going to say maybe like, welcome to High Noon Hard Seltzer's presented podcast. Unnecessary Roughness.
Yeah. There it is. Welcome to Unnecessary Roughness. Of course, we're in college football season, and if you are going to a tailgate, or if you're just going to your friend's house, or if you're just sitting on your couch watching games, what you need accompanying you is High Noon's tailgate pack. They have 2 pear, 2 cranberry, 2 grapefruit. I don't know the other 2 black cherry. I believe. There you go. But they have the pear and the cranberry in the tailgate pack, which are 2 new flavors. If you've never tried them, they are delicious. Yes, Kayce Smith.
I will say that, we've talked about different flavors that High Noon should come out with.
Yep.
And I'm sure
I'm not with you on this. I
know you're not. And I can't take credit for this. I have to give the sportsbook chat, the YouTube chatters that we hung out with today credit. I was eating a pickle and somebody mentioned a pickle flavored High Noon. And I know, hear me out here. I know that sounds gross. But have you ever had like a pickleback with vodka? Because High Noon is real vodka. We know that. That is like their whole thing. Real juice, real vodka. When I can drink, one of my favorite shots is pickle juice and vodka. So
you want the High Noon people to be working on, even if it's a test for you, pickle flavor, so that when you come out off the DL in a little while, you'll be ready to drink it.
Yes. If I could make a request, like we've talked about different flavors on this podcast many times. I mentioned the basic bitch in me would love maybe, I don't know, a pumpkin spice flavor. No. Whoever that man on YouTube was, or woman, whoever that
Right.
was, they had a fake name that said High Noon should come out with a pickle flavored can. I'm in.
You are so pregnant.
Yes, but Brandon, I will say it is a very pregnant thing. And everyone says, oh, pregnant ladies eat pickles. But there's a bar in College Station, Texas called The Tap.
You housed 2 pickles today.
Only one. I brought one home.
Okay.
There's one in the fridge for after the podcast. This place called The Tap, this is such a college bar thing to do. They give away free, or when I was there, they're probably expensive now because I was in college 100 years ago, but they would give away fried pickles because they were using so much dill pickle juice for their pickle shots, which was vodka. I know in the Northeast, it's more whiskey, but that's how much we were drinking pickle shots. So I'm just saying, High Noon, there's a market.
Don't get
Starts with me.
Smith started on pickles.
I love a good pickle.
All right. We have so much. And hello, Jack, and hello, Katie.
And Noah.
And Noah as well. I doubt Noah's on camera, but hello, Noah. I think I'm looking at Katie. Her team won, yes.
Yeah, but not great. Like,
Just
yes,
I'm not worried about that. Listen,
He's
all I
making a
know
joke
is
about me, Katie.
I'm not. It's not even a joke about
Yes,
you.
it is.
No, it's not, because I just got to shout out the UConn Huskies taking down the Fresno State Bulldogs. UConn Huskies in the win column.
Yes, first FBS win since 2019, which, by the way, I don't love that stat because we won a national championship in 2020, even though we played 0 games. That being said, massive win. Like, yeah, we're back. 20-point dog or 23-point dogs, Fresno State. I know Jake Hainer wasn't playing, but nothing to laugh at. Great win for UConn.
Great win for UConn football. All right, so here we go. We dive into our reaction Saturday. Again, this week I've separated into the good, the bad, and the humbled, but I did pull out 3 games to talk about before we talked about any other games. So I think these are probably the biggest games of the day. We will start in Clemson, South Carolina, where the Clemson Tigers finish off NC State. I believe the final score was 30-20, although
30-20.
I kind of bailed out to go ahead and start this program. But Clemson was up 30-13 in the waning moments. NC State scored a touchdown that ended up to be very, very meaningless. But a true top 10 showdown in Clemson, South Carolina, and now the Clemson Tigers get through it. They win the game. They handle business. Their defense looks legit. Kayce, got to be, if you're a Clemson fan, you have to be ecstatic with where you are through some ups and downs with your quarterback, but he played well again. Like, it seems like they're coming out of whatever funk they might have been in a little bit last year.
Yeah, I mean, they win by 10 points. Like you said, it was 17 before the last minute or the last second touchdown, whatever NC State was able to do. But the things that we talked about going into this game were, can Clemson's offense continue the path that they took last week against Wake, against a better defense in NC State? The answer is yes. And then the other thing we were looking at is, how is DJ going to play with this newfound confidence that was very clear after last week? And then if you watched him and when you were watching that game, when he made game-changing plays, whether it was getting a first down or scoring a touchdown, he did have that confidence about him that I think we saw glimpses of when he played for Trevor Lawrence, and we haven't seen it again. And I understand Clemson fans have probably seen it here and there, but as a college football world, we weren't turning on games and being like, look at that, like, for lack of a better term, swagger that DJ Uiagalelei is playing with. He had that tonight. And it was very clear from the beginning that he was going to play that way all night.
I think Clemson's offensive staff has zeroed in on what can make DJ spell, what the right recipe is for DJ. I don't think DJ standing back there and throwing the ball 50 times is the answer for them. And they're kind of getting away from that. He was 21 of 30 tonight for 209 yards and a touchdown. But more importantly than that, he had 14 carries for 73 yards. This is after over 100 yards rushing last week. They're really starting to use him as a weapon in the run game a little bit more, as opposed to just trying to make him a drop back passer. And it is working. They are moving the ball. They are scoring points. And they have a defense that if you're scoring points offensively, if I can guarantee Clemson's defense that I score 30 points a game from the Tigers, it's a playoff team. And here's the biggest deal with Clemson. Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama are routinely believed to be the top 3 teams in this country, right? There's no doubt about that. Ohio State still has a trip to Penn State. They still have to play Michigan later. Alabama still has to play most of the SEC West. They still have to play Tennessee. They would still play the SEC title game. Georgia would still have to play Alabama in the title game, still has to play Tennessee, still has their bigger games ahead of them. Clemson just got through their toughest stretch of the season. They're undefeated, and they just beat the top 2 other teams in the ACC because NC State's still good. Wake Forest is still good. We'll talk about them later. NC State just beat the 2 best teams in the ACC, or Clemson just beat the 2 best teams in the ACC. They're undefeated, and everything's in front of them. I tell the truth about teams always. If your coach is doing a goofy dance, the gritty, I'm going to make fun of him. But he's the 2nd best coach in the country. They're positioned very well. I think they're closer to the playoff than anybody in America.
Well, credit to Jack. Jack's been on this train with DJ. You know,
we can't let Jack have all the teams now. He's got Penn State. He's going to have TCU later. We can't let Jack have all the teams.
No, I'm not. Okay. He's not taking Clemson as a whole. I mean, he can because he's been high on Clemson. But of all of us, he was saying before the season that he believed that this offense would get right and that DJ was not going to have an issue. And thus far, on October 2nd, October 1st, obviously, when they played, he's right.
Jack, are you going to take all the teams?
No, I mean, there's a team, but there was one team I wanted to give you credit for that I was wrong about. But Clemson, I'm taking.
Think of it right now because he's so right on everything.
All right, now wait a minute. All right, wait. So Jack has on this podcast in his pocket, he has Penn State.
Yep.
TCU.
Yep.
And he has
Clemson. And the Connecticut UConn Huskies.
Well, that doesn't count. But that's a pretty good threesome. But Clemson, I mean, they handle business as I mean, I think everybody here thought they might, but Jack, you did see it before the rest of us.
No, I mean, that's not to say this is some Nostradamus like a team we'll get to later, because if you look at Clemson, they were a top team coming into it. I guess I was just more the biggest believer in DJ on the podcast. Mm-hmm. All jokes aside, and I think that's what Kayce was saying. I appreciate her saying that. DJ's good, and I think that point you just made, Brandon, is brilliant. That they have figured out how to use him. And by figuring out how to use him, you make the team a lot better. There are some points, though, that they do look a little like I don't know if
they still don't have Clemson type weapons down the field.
Yeah, like their wide receivers don't really do it for me.
Yeah.
It's also like, can you win? We said this about Georgia last year, but can you win a championship with this offense? That's the question for me, at least.
Yeah, I that's a question that will come out in the wash later on, but I would lean towards if you could win one with that offense last year of Georgia's, then I think you could probably win one with this Clemson. Not to say that Clemson's defense is as good as Georgia's was last year, but it's really good.
And also we're seeing, I know it's only 2 weeks, but Brandon, like you mentioned, they're getting through the hardest part of the ACC right now, and the offense has gotten better. And I know that it's so cliche, but if DJ continues to play this way and continues to believe that he can play this way, who knows what they're going to look like in November and December and potentially January. So that's the thing, and I all jokes aside, like Jack, I'm giving you the credit of saying we all thought the defense was going to look good. We know it's a really good defense. We know that Clemson came into this season the favorite in the ACC, but you were saying like, hold on, let's pump the brakes on thinking that DJ might get replaced because, I mean, even Clemson fans were saying, is he going to make it through the season? So I don't know if the playoff was tomorrow, if Clemson has an offense to win the national championship, but by November or December, they might.
All right. So, Jack, by the way, we're going to get to the teams I was right about too, because Kentucky, hello, how you doing? Arkansas, what's up, Playboys? I got some in my pocket too. Anyway, we're going to switch topics from Clemson, who I think had the biggest win of the week, to another team that Jack is going to. And this is the weirdest thing that's ever happened on this Air Roughness to me. In the group text today, very early this morning, and I want to go read it exactly. Okay. Everybody okay? What happened there? That's Jack laughing.
Jack's
All right.
laughing.
I don't know that Jack's ever laughed that loudly on the show. Let me just make sure I find it. Okay. So early on, TCU jumped on Oklahoma, right? Jack at 12:44 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Jack texts the group, says, "Y'all better hope this doesn't keep up, because I'm gonna raise hell." Yeah. Kayce said, "You have every right to." Jack,
Yes.
I don't know that there was ever a big, huge pushback like doubt on your TCU take. And plus, I don't know that I don't enjoy your TCU take, but is there some sort of beef with the rest of the bunch?
No. It's just like it's time for me to, puff out my chest and say, hey, TCU, Horned Frogs, I think this is how they do it. I believed in them before anybody. And last week I said they were the best team in the Big 12, which they may not be, because Oklahoma State, which I'm sure we'll get to, looked really good today. They had a big win. But what TCU did today, and everyone's going to make it about Oklahoma and how bad Oklahoma is. No, TCU is an electric team, and I'm really excited to see how far they can take this. And I put on the graphic, Big 12, they're the surprise team, and they were going to beat Oklahoma. And
we didn't have beef about it. There wasn't like a beef.
Well, last week
Now, wait a minute. I'm not going to let Jack spike the football too bad on that.
No.
He had hold on. He had TCU as his surprise team. I mean, Jack, I had Kansas as mine. Okay.
Yeah, and next week we got a big matchup.
Oh, it's me and Jack next week.
Yeah,
it's not. We don't have to dick measure right at this moment.
No. This is for the Big 12.
You're both right. You're both right. No, to your question, Brandon, is that there wasn't like beef. It wasn't like I can only speak for myself. It wasn't like I was like, oh, Jack, you're an idiot. What I said was that I didn't see this being a game, regardless if it was TCU or not. I did not see this being a game OU would lose because of the fact that they lost last week. And also, I knew TCU had beaten SMU the week before, but what I said was Oklahoma's not SMU. Well, turns out Oklahoma played TCU worse than SMU did. So he had a right to raise hell against those points.
Now, Jack, I will push back on one thing. You said this is about TCU, they're electric, and a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's about Oklahoma, they're bad. It's a little bit about Oklahoma. You get beat last night. You get beat last week to a team that just lost to Tulane. You get beat at home to a team just lost to Tulane. Then you're having questions about who you are, what you are, and you have to answer it. You have to show up the next week and be ready to play football. And they got housed from the start. There's nothing fluky about this. They got an absolute countrified ass whipping from beginning to end. And that ain't an Oklahoma I've seen in the last 2 decades. Even when Oklahoma's taking a step back, it hasn't been like they just show up to TCU and get absolutely mollywopped. So I think if I'm an Oklahoma fan, I'm probably still all aboard Brent Venables because he's recruiting well and he's going to turn around but buddy, the job ahead of him might be a lot harder than we thought previously.
Oh, Brandon, I'm so glad you brought that up because, I've given OU fans things with 2 hands. On one hand, I falsely and fakely, that's a word, believe in them every single year. I retired that officially on Twitter today. I'm done believing in Oklahoma. On the other hand, I gave them a ton of off-season content because I said, you guys are going to be worse off without Lincoln Riley. And what did they say? Brent Venables is going to change the culture. Brent Venables is going to fix the defense. This team and the fans are more excited to play for Brent Venables than they were with Lincoln Riley. And today, if we're looking at, and not to take anything away from what TCU did, because I do agree that it's kind of a mixture of both. TCU had 668 yards.
It could have been 850 if they wanted to.
That defense has not given up that many points since the 2019 LSU Tigers team that beat them in the college football playoff, which is one of the best offenses in college football ever. So all this offseason bullshit that people like to spew out from Norman that, oh, well, listen, Lincoln was a problem. The defense could never get it right. They're going to take the next step. And I know it's only October 1st, but you can't give up nearly 700 yards of offense and have anything to say about Lincoln Riley. And I know we're watching USC right now, or it's on as we speak, but OU fans were so concerned about what people thought OU would look like without Lincoln Riley, and Venables was the answer. Tonight shows that it didn't matter who was going to be that coach. They could still have issues on defense.
No, I think this was probably a humbling moment for Oklahoma fans where they realized, you know what? The old guy's gone. The old guy's gone. I can't worry about that guy anymore.
I hope that's the way they feel.
If something comes up later, I'll laugh at him, fine. But right now, I need to focus on is Brent Venables, is this team a 6-6 team? Is he going to struggle all year? What's happening here? Because we got to get ready to go to the SEC soon. All right. And I can't be out here giving up 600 yards to TCU, getting ready to go. Now, they did lose their quarterback early, but they were already down big before they lost him. And I think the writing was on the wall at that point anyway.
Wasn't it? I mean, I know when Jack texted us, which is around the end of the first quarter, it was 20-3. I mean, it was disgusting from the get-go.
The ass whipping was immediate and thorough. And
yes.
Now, listen, we'll talk about it in a minute, but the Big 12 is just a big old fun mess of football right now because Oklahoma State just went on the road and got them a real good win we'll talk about in a minute. Kansas is 5-0. You've got, obviously, the team we're talking about right now. Who is it? The TCU, undefeated. Oklahoma's already got 2 losses. Kansas State hasn't taken a loss in the Big 12. Like, there's a bunch of stuff to come out in the wash. And by the way, Texas is laying there. If they get the quarterback back, they're laying there as a dangerous animal too. So the Big 12 is fascinating from rooter to tutor this year. And I can't wait to get into it front to back, rooter to tutor. That was
you're full of like Southern cliches tonight.
Yeah, the later it gets, the more of a Southern grandmother I turn into.
Oh, that's cute.
And I'm gonna stop the show in a minute to get one of y'all to go get a switch.
Did you get beat with switches in school, or are you?
Oh God, yeah. My grandmother told me
really?
I had to go. Yeah, you never had to go get a switch?
No. I think that I was like the generation where you weren't allowed to do that in school anymore.
Oh, that wasn't in school. That was more your grandmother or something like that.
Oh, yeah, no.
My mom did. Ruler? Did you get hit with a ruler? What'd you get hit with?
A wooden spoon was always threatened on me.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, but no, never get a switch. Wait, I'm sorry. Can you, what to a rooter?
The rooter is like a hog. All right. The rooter's the nose. They root around the ground.
Yeah.
And then the tutor is the other side.
Okay. I couldn't remember what word it was. Okay. The rooter to the tutor.
Big 12 fascinating was the point.
Yes. And, back to the OU TCU game, that is, and I fall obviously victim to this when we talk about it. It's just like my brain specifically, and people who think like me, it's like you look and you say, okay, like, yeah, TCU has been decent. They've not been garbage. They've not been, no offense. They've not been Kansas. However, OU is OU, and OU will bounce back. And they always have weird games against Kansas State. We saw that last week. But, again, to TCU's credit, I mean, Max Duggan, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like they're a force in the Big 12. And OU, if they haven't let go of the Lincoln Riley stuff, it's time. It's time to let go.
Well, let me read you a list, okay? Going back to 2015, here are the total losses for Oklahoma in a season. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Beginning in 2015, 2 losses. 2016, 2 losses. 17, 2 losses. 18, 2 losses. That's 11-2, 11-2, 12-2, 12-2. 2019, 2 losses, 12-2. 2020, 9-2, 2 losses. 2021, 11-2, 2 losses. Every year since 2015, they have not had more than 2 losses. It is October 1st, and they have 2 losses, and they still have Baylor. They still have Oklahoma State. They still have Texas. They still have a lot of meat on the bone, and they've already taken 2 losses. Brent Venables is going to struggle through this year until he can get to signing day and show his team hope for the future, which is probably very likely, but he's going to have to recruit and he is recruiting a big time class, but they need defensive help and they need it fast.
And you know what? The thing about him needing a year is like, that's a normal thing that happens. That is a normal situation, especially because he was a coordinator before. I think that the issue is that if you took it in a vacuum and you put a different team name on it, and you said, hey, you're losing your coach that was very successful, that was getting NFL head coaching job looks at, you're losing your Heisman candidate quarterback, you'd be like, okay, like, yeah, it might, maybe not a complete rebuild, but like you might take a step back. OU fans didn't feel that way. That's why it is so jarring, I think, excuse me, because it's like we were told this wouldn't happen.
One more point and then I'll move on. This is very petty out of me, but as a college football fan, I love when good programs are bad. I love when an elite program who loses once or twice a year goes through a year that's not very good. I love Notre Dame not being all that good this year. I love Oklahoma not being, because it shows that life is, first of all, college football is hard, and a lot of these programs make it look easy, but it shows that life is fair and just, because every now and then everybody needs to be humbled a little bit. So I'd like for Oklahoma fans to live how I live for a year, see how they like it. I don't think they're going to like it. All right.
You can make the argument, Brandon, that it's, and this argument happens all the time. Is it tougher to live be just a mediocre team all the time, but you never have hope? Or is it tough to be a team that's usually always there at the end and then you suck? Which one's worse?
It's tougher to be a mediocre team year in, year out.
I think one thing that you're like, we're giving Brent Venables too much of a pass, I think.
I don't know if that's true or not. We got to see how bad it gets. So we're also assuming that it's going to stay bad. We're assuming that he doesn't end up 9-3 or 8-4, something like that. So I got to let him get through the season.
We were told he was the best defensive coordinator in the country,
and
he came into Oklahoma not with a cupboard that was bare. He came into Oklahoma with some talent on that defense. He brought in some from the transfer portal as well, and he just allowed 650 yards to TCU. That's unacceptable.
It is. It's unacceptable. I guess and this is where I think that like again, the transfer portal does change it, but Oklahoma had defensive issues with Lincoln Riley. We know that.
Not as bad as this. Not as bad as this. That was embarrassing.
But it is like, if he is, and he was the best defensive coordinator in the country, whatever else we want to say, he doesn't have Clemson's defensive players on his roster right now. And I'm not giving him a pass.
But it's not like he has UConn's players on defense.
Well, that's true. That's a good point, Jack.
All right. Now we move on to the third game I wanted to pull out before we get into all my other takes. That's two mediocre games in a row for the Georgia Bulldogs. Now they won 26-22 on the road at Missouri, so they stay undefeated. I'm not sure they came into the season at number 3 in the nation and catapulted themselves to number 1 with very, very strong performances out of the gate, destroying Oregon, destroying South Carolina, and then beating Stanford 33-0. But just as easily as they jumped up to number 1 because of strong performances, I feel like 2 bad performances in a row has to be a sign of some concern. Missouri is god-awful. I mean, just not good at all. And Georgia needed everything they had to come back and ended up taking that game in the last 5 minutes, but not inspiring stuff from the Georgia Bulldogs.
Not at all. And I feel like I gave Georgia a pass last week. They had it was a sleepwalk game, whatever you want to say. It was like, all right, the first time they kind of looked like they could potentially have some issues. They played so badly in the first half tonight. And the fact that they didn't lead the game until there was like 4.5 minutes left at Missouri is exactly why you do need to be worried about it. And Stetson Bennett, like if you look at the split of his stats between the first half and the second half, I mean, it's crazy. So I agree with you. Not only that, and I mean, Jack and Katie obviously are on social media and on the duty of it, but like you were seeing things like, Kirby's lost control of this Georgia team because there was like things happening that just didn't look like they had their shit together. Missouri, first of all, Missouri's kicker is like, I mean, he had one hell of a night. I know they ended up losing, but
He's a gorgeous man.
he is a thick boy.
Talk about a bounce back. Last week, he literally blew the game by missing like a extra point
Yeah.
for a field goal. And then today he was hitting he almost had Big Cat have to pay $100,000 for
Incredible.
all the beer and alcohol drank in Columbia, Missouri tonight.
Mevis.
Yeah.
I don't know his first name, but I know his last name is Mevis. And I remember him doing some crazy shit last year because I remember Glenny Balls in the gambling cave being excited about Mevis. But beside the point, the fact that you were in a dogfight with Missouri as the and you know, weird shit happens in every conference, no doubt, including the SEC. But we were saying, and I mean, again, I can only speak for myself, but like that Georgia was run away by far the best team in the country. You don't struggle against Missouri down to the last 4 minutes of the game if you're the best team in the country by far.
Yeah, the thing is, when they got off that 3-0 start, we did crown them, and we thought, oh wow, they look like they're going to walk through this thing untested, and they've been tested twice now, and that's before they take a trip to Kentucky. That's before they go down to Jacksonville to play Florida. That's before they have to try to deal with Hendon Hooker in Tennessee. Like if they're struggling with Missouri on the road, going to have some interesting road trips in the Southeastern Conference coming up very, very soon. Now, that's our 3 games I pulled out. Now we go to the good, the bad, and the humbled, and we start with the good. I got to give one last shout out to the TCU Horned Frogs. As much as we focused on Oklahoma, they are undefeated, and it sets up a matchup with another team that is in the good. The Kansas Jayhawks are 5-0, 5-0, and I don't care who you play, you're 5-0, and they've beaten now 2 conference opponents, Iowa State and West Virginia. They've beaten Duke, who, by the way, isn't bad. They bounced back tonight. They've beaten Houston. They have beaten teams. They are not beating the FCS Southeast of the world. They're beating legitimate football teams. They are 5-0, and it sets up College Game Day in Lawrence, Kansas. 5-0 Kansas, 4-0 TCU. And the biggest Big 12 matchup of the season that nobody saw coming except for me and Jack.
Well, you guys did see it. Congratulations.
Another good team. I want to give credit to Brandon because last week he said, this was what I was trying to remember. He brought up how Georgia struggled against Kent State. And I was like, it doesn't really matter. Then tonight happened. And I was like, wait, I was wrong about that because tonight was concerning, but yes, TCU, Kansas, what a game. It's a shame we're not there. It's a sportsbook state. They should be sending you guys out.
Today, we should audible and at least go to Kansas one time this year.
Yeah.
Because Jack, we were talking about on the stream, if game day was going to go there or not, which they are, which they should. But when we were discussing it, we went through the slate of, where they could potentially go. And I know the Red River Shootout is next week. Obviously, the luster's a little bit off of that just because the way Oklahoma's played. But I'm like, they can't. Like, they've gone to that game a million times. Like, I understand. Like, the best thing that Game Day has done thus far this year, and granted, they are one of our rivals, so I don't know, but again, it's still College Game Day, was the best thing they've done is go to App State. I mean, that was the way that they audibled that and did that for the first time. Like, going to Lawrence for this game, like, that's so much more exciting than going to a matchup they've probably been to a million times. And Kansas deserves it. Like, I'm going to be so interested to see the AP top 25 tomorrow. And I know every single week we're like, well, they don't matter, but we still want to see it. Kansas has to be ranked. They have to be.
If people don't rank Kansas, I'm going to start going door to door and yelling at people. I'm going to put my finger in the face and say, you should not have a vote. You should not have a vote. Just give them 23. Can we give them 23? I mean, my God, Pitt just lost to Georgia Tech. We gave them a number. Let's give Kansas a number.
What's the religion where they dress up and they ride on bicycles and go door to door?
Jehovah's Witness?
Jehovah's Witness. What you need to do is you need to dress up like a Jehovah's Witness and go with like little Kansas pamphlets with like Lance Leipold's.
A Jayhawk Witness?
Yes, with like Lance Leipold, like little like bobbleheads with you.
Yeah.
And whenever they answer the door, you could be like, Hello, ma'am. Hello, sir. May I speak to you about the Kansas City or the Kansas Jayhawks and Lance Leipold? That's what you should do.
Rock Chalk Jayhawk, brother. Good to see you.
Yes.
Um,
Let me leave you some information on why you should be voting for Kansas in the AP Top 25.
well, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
I have a bad section in a minute, so we're going to circle back to Matt Campbell in a little while. It was Iowa State and Matt Campbell against Lance Leipold in Kansas. Did Lance Leipold win the Nebraska job today? Was that the Nebraska job bowl? That might have been the Nebraska job bowl.
You mentioned that during the stream, which is a very fair point. You know, I loved for Kansas fans to believe that Lance Leipold's not going to go anywhere. And like we've talked about, you know, he's a little older. He believes, he said the good Lord put them in Lawrence.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, Nebraska was going to be on the phone with either one of them if they haven't already. And it was a tryout. And, you know, I know you're going to talk about what Iowa State did in the bad, but the rolling that kicker out after he'd already missed 2 crucial field goals on 4th and short with 30 seconds left was an absolute coaching debacle for Matt Campbell.
Let me just circle back to that in a minute because I got it loaded up on that one. We have TCU, we got Kansas.
I'm going to get a new pen because I broke my pen, so I'll be right back.
Okay, she's getting her pen. I have my pen right here. I have my notes right here too. I'm very prepared. I'll save this one for her because I have a couple more goods. I actually got like 8 goods. Shout out to the UCLA Bruins who on Friday night, I know I don't need Kayce for this part. So UCLA Bruins Friday night, they went to 5-0 by handling business against the Washington Huskies. Washington played poorly. Michael Penix there was a moment in the first half where I'm like, oh my God, everything I said about Michael Penix being great is crashing down around me. But he ended up playing okay. He just had a couple of mistakes, but he's still having a hell of a year. But Dorian Thompson-Robinson was the best player on the field for UCLA. They now host, I believe they host Utah next week. So you're going to have undefeated UCLA and Utah playing next week. It's in a terrific game. Chip Kelly, he's kind of been under the radar, not really on the surface of things. And then Lincoln Riley goes to LA and gets all the pub. And here's Chip Kelly just knocking off top 15 teams at home. And he's 5-0 and good for him. Good for UCLA. And that uniform match, they just look beautiful.
And, you know, we've given a lot of shit to a lot of teams in the Pac-12 since we started this podcast, UCLA being one of those teams. But I mean, the Pac-12 is every conference is going to be interesting, but it's very interesting. And with Chip Kelly being 5-0, you're like, oh, wait, that's why they hired this guy.
I mean, they still have Utah, who's going to be in the playoff mix if they win out. You still have Oregon, who is going to make life difficult on anybody who plays them in the Pac-12. You have UCLA undefeated, USC undefeated, and then you still have Washington there to make things interesting. Washington State is not going away. So you have a lot of really good teams in the Pac-12 that are going to play a lot of meaningful football, probably more meaningful football in the Pac-12 than we've seen in a long time. The Big 12 is you know, from top to bottom is crazy. I think the ACC is starting to sort itself out, but it has good teams. Like all these conference races are fascinating to me. Shout out to Bret Beliema. Hey, you want to talk about a game I was wrong on. I thought Wisconsin would bounce back from Ohio State, but no, Wisconsin just gets their doors beaten off by Illinois. Bret Beliema walks back into Madison after a decade and just drinks their milkshake. Chase Brown, their running back for Illinois, he's a classic Wisconsin style running back that Bielema would have over there, just feeding the ball 25 times a game. Chase Brown's one of the best running backs in the country, and Bret Beliema, his fat jolly ass just walks right in there and takes what he wants.
I love Bret Beliema. He's great. Do you think that that's got to be, and I know every coach that, you know, has either left a program for a different program or has been fired or let go, however it is, do you think that has to be one of the best feelings to go back to a previous program that you coach, especially at home?
I would think it feels better if they fires you. Like he left.
Yes.
He left. Right. Now, I bet it does. I think walking back into a place you used to coach and walking out the winter and their coach having to shake your hand and and everything. I think that's an elite feeling. That's probably one of the best feelings in college football. Yes, but it would be better. It's better for a fired coach, but
definitely, absolutely. Like, I mean, I know it's been multiple weeks now, but if like Bobby Petrino won in Fayetteville, completely different. However, with the Bielema wrinkle is, that he did leave to go to Arkansas, failed at Arkansas, and then, had a stint with the Patriots and kind of bounced around. So it has to feel good that like at some point, Wisconsin fans are probably like, wow, like, thank God we got, he wasn't going to be the guy, but he's just so he just looks so happy all the time. And when he wins and he's got that smoke show of a wife, you just got to feel good for him.
But again, I'm saying this in the most affectionate way possible. He's a fat guy. It's fun to watch fat guys succeed. It's fun to watch fat coaches. There's not a lot of them. I mean, it's nice to see him just bouncing around. It's fun to see.
It is fun to see. I said, I'm a big Bret Beliema fan. Of all the coaches that I've ever met and worked with, he was always probably one of my favorite to work with, because he loves football and he's happy. And, Illinois fans, like that's a good match for him. And yes, I know he left Wisconsin, but that's got to feel good. And boy, Wisconsin stinks, huh?
We'll get to them in a second too. We have a bad section. Remember that. My next good, Ryan Day versus Greg Schiano in a face-to-face battle right on the sideline there. I love a good face-to-face showdown of coaches. I love when coaches get nose to nose and get all up in each other's shit and everything. Now, these guys have coached together before. I think they're friends. They're maybe mentor, mentoree, mentee, something like that. But Ryan Day's Ohio State team was winning 49-10. Now, I believe the punter for Ohio State went into business for himself. He was one of those rugby-style punters where he takes 3 steps to punt it and then realizes, oh, my God, nobody's over here. I'm going to run. And he got hit out of bounds. I don't know what brought Schiano all the way over from the other sideline. I don't know how he exactly got there. Go, Jack.
I would assume, and my read on it was, he was not happy that, yes, on the replay, it was clear that was a situation where they tell the punter, if you see space, run.
Yeah.
But Schiano probably saw it as a fake called, and he was like, that's fucking Bush League. It's 39-10.
Well, that's fine, Jack. That's fine. But my question is, it's one thing to get mad at a Bush League call, but how often do you get mad at a Bush League call and walk over the other sidelines? What got him to the sideline?
Probably the relationship that they both know each other. So it's like, if they didn't, like, if it was what I thought of was the Tom Herman, Mike Gundy situation, which was more at midfield. And the reason they were together was because on that punt, that was a rush, there was the late hit, and then there was a skirmish, and everybody,
that's right. He was over there pulling everybody out.
Rutgers sideline came over there, and they were pulling each other out, and he was there, and then him and Ryan Day were yelling at each other. So that was probably the biggest baseline of it.
And I mean, Brandon, like we were joking around in the cold open, but it's like, if you know somebody and you're close to somebody, when you get mad at them, it's even more heated. Like if you and I were coaching against each other and I got mad at you versus if I got mad at somebody that I don't know, I'd run my ass over to say some shit to you too.
I assume I assume in the post-game handshake, which I saw, it looked like they talked to each other, and I assume that's when Ryan Day said, listen, he did it himself. We'll take care of that. We nothing but respect for you. So they got it good. But God, I love a good coach. I love a good nose-to-nose coach off.
Ryan Day was dropping some solid F-bombs in the replay when they showed it. But you and I were, obviously sitting together at the end. Greg Schiano, first of all, I would never want to fuck with him. He just is tough. He looks like he takes no shit. But when they did meet up at the end of the game and they did shake hands, it still looked to me like, and I know that he's just a stoic facial expression person as it is. It didn't look to me like Greg Schiano was super receiving of whatever Ryan Day was saying in that moment. I'm sure he's fine now. I'm sure they've talked to each other. They've texted each other. But in that moment, he was not like overly giddy to have that conversation.
No, he wasn't picking up what Ryan Day was laying down. One more thing about Ryan Day. When are we just all going to recognize as a country that he's the worst hair and beard dyer in the country. Like this motherfucker. We're just gonna let him dye his hair and beard forever. Like let a little salt and pepper in there, Ryan. There's no chance you look like that.
Katie said that. Katie was like, he's got to stop. Katie, I know you and I agree on this. Good salt and pepper beard is pretty good.
I was also just like, if he dyes his hair, if he admits it, then Coach K has to admit it because there's no shot. Both of them are saying they don't.
I love that Katie brought that into. It was perfect. It was such a North Carolina fan thing to say.
Do not give Coach K any reason to get back into the spotlight to say anything. So
touche.
Also on Ryan and Greg, I mean, as coworkers in the public's eye, there's things that we know about coworkers and how they work and whatnot that like kind of are like, oh, you know this about this guy. And if he does something and then apologizes, you shake your head. But behind you, you're like, I know what that motherfucker's about. That happens in the office here. And I'm sure it happens in college football even more. And Ryan Day's always given me that feeling where it was like, so yeah.
Jack, but do you think that they have somebody in HR that'll, rank that interaction?
Yeah, no, HR. Yeah. Speaking of HR. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of just random stuff that doesn't mean anything, I'm just going to rank the nicest people on the show.
Yes.
I don't know, just off the top of my head, I think the two nicest people are Katie and Kayce. This is two nice.
Noah's really nice too.
Yeah, but Noah doesn't count. Noah doesn't count.
Well, Noah doesn't go out of his way to say hello to his heroes. So make sure you note that down, please.
I love the face-to-face. One more good thing was the totally bitchy frat fight at Ole Miss. I love when those pieces of shit show the whole nation how hateable they are. Did you see those bow ties and ascots flying? It wasn't a punch thrown. They couldn't have busted a grape in a fruit fight. They're just out there. There's 40 of them fighting and nobody got hit.
It is so funny first of all, college fights like in games are usually like just funny as they are. Like they have a different aura about them than pro football fights, because pro football fights are just drunk ass, crazy fans that would probably kill each other if they had the option. College kids are just being college kids. The fact that Ole Miss, and I know that it's their thing, and I'm the last person that's going to make fun of traditions that don't make sense because where I went to school, but the fact that like they still dress up and girls have to wear the dresses and heels, but the guys are in sports coats and bow ties, you get in one little squeamish like that, and you've got literal sports coats like flying into each other. It's going to be fucking funny.
I'll tell you this.
Where was Mintz though when that happened? That's what I'm sure
he was in the front row putting you take it to the people. So I got one thing to say about if you in 2022 in the year of our Lord 2022 are still wearing a sports coat to a college football game, stop.
No.
Get help. No, stop. Get help. This is not. I don't care if you're at Auburn, if you're at Alabama, if you're at Ole Miss, if you're wearing a sports coat to a game, stop. What, Jack?
Traditions matter.
No, they don't. No, wearing a sports coat to a college football game has always been stupid and will always be stupid.
That's why they wear it, though. It's pledges. Those are all freshmen that are there that reserve seats for the people.
Well, guess what? Guess what, Jack? If you got to do that, you got to wear a sports coat to a game to be cool. Don't pledge a fraternity. All right. Just go through life without a fraternity because it's. I'm
going to be honest. You better watch what tree you're barking up, because I would wager a lot of people that listen to this podcast are people that pledged and did dumb shit like that.
You better watch what tree you're barking up. All right. Because I got the 5-0 Kansas Jayhawks waiting for your little purple ass Horned Frogs next week. And I
just moved you down in my favorite, nicest podcast people in this my ranking
first
list.
of all, you don't even qualify for my nicest list because it's all women. But if you did, I would have moved you down too.
Okay. You know what? That's fair.
Jack, you just have to send him a drunk email and you'll be back in the
okay. All right. We're getting way too inside Barstool now.
I was about to say, like, there's gonna be people who do not know these references.
Whatever. But Jack, I agree with Jack about the traditions. However, like if I know frats and sororities, obviously more so frats do the whole, like, you have to do this, the hazing, and like, obviously some of it's very dangerous, some of it's very stupid. Wearing anything that hot to a football game is just miserable. Like I've always said, like, hey, those
That's
girls
the
look
point.
great.
That's the point. They
But,
want to
like,
make
I
them
don't wanna-
miserable.
like it's already hot enough down there.
I guess I'm just not built that way. Like if there were three big brothers named they all had last names from first names, the fucking
Bartholomew.
if fucking Waters Winston the fourth said, you gotta go sit in the front row to save my seat, I'd be like, fuck you. I ain't going to sit in the fucking front row. What are you talking about? I'll go in when it's time to go in. I could not be one of those guys. So good for
Well,
them.
don't forget, because I mean, we're talking about these guys. I think Mintz put it on Instagram. Like those are the same kids that picked him up from the airport. Like
Yeah,
those are the
you're really-
pledges that stand there with the signs.
You're really on your way to a successful life if you're picking up mints at the airport because your frat brothers told you to. That's something. You've got a hell of a start there. I don't care who your daddy is. All right. One more good thing.
Does
Couple
help you
more-
get pussy.
Couple more good things.
That is a fact, Jack. That is a fact.
I'm sorry if you're picking up mints from the airport at 10 o'clock at night. Pussy's the last thing on your mind.
I don't know. Sleeping your dead tour. I don't
All right.
know.
Did y'all see his tweet where he said all the people in the
Yes.
front row were just happy to see him? Like, God damn it. What? Okay.
All right, let's go to the bad.
All right. We have we're not. I still have four goods. Three
Okay,
goods.
cool.
I thought this might happen. Wake Forest is good. Like Wake Forest is really good. They lost 51-45 to Clemson last week. Wake Forest might be a top 10 to 12 team. They went to Florida State, handled business. Sam Hartman is really good. They can score on anybody. Watch out. This might be another 11-1, 10-2 type season for Wake Forest. They'll have to play NC State later, but they're very, very good. And they went on the road to Florida State. Florida State still having a good season, but kind of got a little humbled that we'll talk about in a minute. But Wake Forest, good win. Oklahoma State, great win. Oklahoma State goes
Great
on
win.
to Baylor. And Oklahoma State, to me, has been the quietest top 10 team in the country. They haven't had the big win yet. Haven't had to, but they've been right there, like number 9, number 10. You've seen a lot of SEC teams kind of come in the top 10 and jump them. But that won't happen now because they went on the road and just absolutely didn't destroy Baylor, but they were always in control of that game and showed that they probably, in honesty, are the class of the Big 12.
Well, and they, like you mentioned, they controlled the whole game. I mean, they took the lead for good on the opening drive. I mean, that tells you what you need to know about that game. And, Spencer Sanders, I can't remember exactly how many turnovers he had last year in their 2 games against Baylor, but I think it was 6 or 7. It was a good amount. And I mean, we talked about the way that the Big 12 championship played out and how Oklahoma State just absolutely shit the bed and didn't make the college football playoff. But the thing about that game tonight, I mean, Baylor tried to make it interesting. They had the crazy third quarter. And, obviously at the end, it was just like, all right, like what's going to happen? Oklahoma State tonight played the way that they should as the team ranked that high. But it's kind of the anti what we've seen with Mike Gundy sometimes, or it's like, they might, if they were going to win the game, they were going to win at the very end. They were going to do something to try to give that game away. And they didn't. And that to me says a lot about the way that they're playing this year. Spencer Sanders is playing this well, but also Baylor fans being so high on Blake Shapen. And he didn't have a bad day, but
Yeah,
I mean, very clearly Oklahoma State was the better football team.
Yeah, Blake Shapen's checked down Charlie.
He had some good throws though.
Using him over Bohannon, I don't know if that's aging all that well. Anyway, one more thing about Oklahoma State, Jack. You've watched Spencer Sanders like the rest of us for 3 or 4 years now. Is he faster all of a sudden? I watched him getting the edge today. Like there would be some called runs for him, and he was getting the edge on like defensive backs. I didn't realize he was as fast as he is.
No, yeah, that was always why I loved him so much, because I thought he had this phenomenal dual threat ability, but maybe he's just picking his spots better to run. And that's why it's like, oh, we see him being fast because he's not doing stupid scrambles anymore.
Now, last good thing, actually 2 more, but one of the last ones, if I'm going to call out their road record and how they've struggled the last 5 times out on the road for those victories of 5 points or less, got to shout out that Alabama went on the road and looked like Alabama today. They went to an Arkansas team who is in the middle of their come to Jesus meeting. Like they're just not all that good. You saw today how big of a difference it is between them and an actually elite talented team. Bryce Young went down, went out. It doesn't appear that it's serious or it doesn't appear that it's season ending or anything like that. Nick Saban said after the game, it looked like a shoulder sprain or an AC sprain in his shoulder. So we'll see if he's ready to go next week or not. But Alabama was fantastic on the road. Jahmyr Gibbs over 200 yards rushing. Just showed the difference in their talent and Arkansas's talent, and it was stark.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk about Arkansas and what happened at the end of that game, but them going up 20, Alabama going up 28-0, and kind of allowing a little bit of leeway because Bryce Young went down. That they're just wildly more talented. That you go back and you look at that 1-point win over Texas, and it's just like that to me. Like after what happened today and what happened elsewhere in the country, like Alabama doing what they did to Arkansas today, and KJ Jefferson did not play terribly. Arkansas is very one-dimensional.
He's pretty bad.
He wasn't. Alabama is that good.
Yeah, they
let him back in that game for a little bit.
Yeah, when Bryce Young went out, they got a little shell shocked. KJ Jefferson just doesn't belong on the field with Bryce Young. Like he's
no. That's what I'm saying is that Alabama is just that much better than Arkansas. Like Alabama, to me, handling Arkansas the way that they did, and even though Arkansas should have covered the game without question, the fact that Alabama beat them that's Alabama is one of the best teams in the country easily. And they showed that again tonight against an Arkansas team that had a lot of hope going into this game. And the talent just was not equal.
Well, they're not going to, their hope's gone. They're going to lose their next 2 games too.
Can we give them credit for the 23 points of a comeback? I know it was Bryce.
Yeah. I'm just not going to do it.
Everyone together was wait a second, Arkansas is back in this game.
There was a moment. Yeah. But they got dominated at the beginning. They got dominated at the end. I mean, them having a 23-point outburst in the middle just didn't do much. I mean, it was.
But they also, they had they were able to come back with the trick play. Obviously, the running game. That's why I say they're one-dimensional. And I think Sam Pittman might have even said that in his post-game press conference. But it was impressive, even though a lot of it had to do with Bryson. It still was impressive. The offense was able to crawl back. That a lot of teams going down 28-0 would lay down and just say, fuck it, I just want this game to end.
I mean, they got beat 49-26. They got destroyed, or 49-20, whatever it was, 49-23. I don't remember what it was. Okay, last good thing, then we go to the bad. Not going to dwell on it, but Will Rogers, 329 yards, 3 touchdowns. Defense scores 2 touchdowns. Mississippi State. I have no idea how we lost to LSU because we're really, really good. And we actually showed it today. So it felt good.
Congrats. A&M sucks.
Yep. Now the bad. The bad. Pitt needs to get the Pitt Panthers need to get embarrassed. They lost to Georgia Tech tonight, guys. They were still ranked. And they were still ranked, and they got beat by Georgia Tech, who fired their coach, who fired their athletic director. You know how bad you got to be to fire both of those guys? You're actually saying this guy sucks so bad we know we got to hire a football coach. We have to change our entire building before you bring the football coach in. That's how bad they are. And Pitt lost to them. Pitt as a ranked team, and at home, that's an awful loss for Pitt. Wisconsin is bad for the first time in over a decade. I mean, they're bad. They're not a good football team. I was trying to see through their warts last week, but Mertz never became a decent quarterback. Braylon Allen, solid, but he's not Melvin Gordon. He's not the group they had. Their offensive line can't really block anywhere near the way they used to block. And their defense is beatable. This is a bad Wisconsin team. Yes, Katie.
2. That's the amount of rushing yards Wisconsin had today.
They had 2 rushing yards. Wow.
2.
Run the damn ball, baby.
And Illinois, I mean, he has built them like Wisconsin. They run the football with Chase Brown, and they're a very good defense. Illinois is good, but Wisconsin is bad for the first time in a very long time, maybe the last 20 years. It's interesting to see because they're a lot like Iowa in the sense that they've been playing their brand of football for so long and so successful at it that you could sweep it under the rug. You could say, yeah, they only scored 13 points today, but they won because they're tough, they're gritty. If you're no longer winning, that bad offense style of play doesn't sell as well to anybody. Like, I just wonder if there's massive wholesale changes coming to Wisconsin very, very soon. Matt
Hey,
Campbell.
Brandon.
Yes, hi.
So
What is this?
if you're Wisconsin,
Yes.
I think there's one job Lance Leipold really wants.
You think it's Wisconsin?
Well, yeah. I mean, he's from Wisconsin. He coached at Wisconsin Whitewater.
But it's all about timing in college football.
I know.
And I don't think I don't think you fire Paul Chryst after one bad year.
Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to ask.
And Lance Leipold is going to be hireable after this year. Like, timing, I don't think is going to put that marriage together. Plus, I wonder if Wisconsin's headed to a different type of split where the fans want Jim Leonard to be the head coach. They love Jim Leonard. They don't want to lose Jim Leonard. I think when it comes time to replace Paul Chryst, they're going to give Jim Leonard a shot. So I don't know that there's really an opening there, even though there might be. Now, I got to circle back to Matt Campbell on this bad part. They lost 14-11 to Kansas. They had a kicker who doinked twice, and not just chip shots, but not long field goals either. You're talking about the 30 to 40 yard range, both of them, and he missed them both. They got down to they were coming down. They moved the ball at will in the second half. They had 4th and about 6 inches with 30 seconds left in the game. And instead of going for it and playing to win the game, he played for the safety of a field goal which wasn't safe at all because his kicker was having the worst day of his life. I thought that was coaching malpractice. And we've seen it proven time and time again this year. Neil Brown did it. A couple of other guys who did it. I think Brian Brom did it. If you start coaching not to lose, if you take the safe route, you are very well going to lose that game. College football doesn't really reward safety. It doesn't really reward caution. It doesn't reward guys who don't go out and get it. That's why the guys like Lane Kiffin who go for every 4th and 4 are so in right now. Like, this is a go get it business. Go get it. Go get the 6 inches and win the fucking game. Don't try to tie them. Don't give your kicker who's been bad all day a reason to lose this game for you. I thought Matt Campbell that was just embarrassing. I don't understand big time coaches who make big time money making small time decisions.
Yeah, that we talked about this when we were talking about the Nebraska hire. It's like, not only did Lance Leipold win the game, but he didn't have a very glaring coaching decision that Matt Campbell made. And not even just playing to tie or being safe. Like, if that kid had kicked like Mevis from Missouri did, then fine, roll him out there. Know you're going to take it into overtime. He missed 2 critical field goals. And I know doinks are like, it's not a complete miss. That field goal, I looked at you and I looked at Evan and said, was that like shanked at all? Like, or did somebody tip it? Like, he just flat out missed it. And the fact that they were still in that game, you cannot make that coaching decision when you're already in a position where people are looking at you as a head coach because of the way you've been coaching a team that was supposed to be, Big 12 contention a few seasons ago. So I feel bad for that kid to be put in that spot, but he shouldn't have been put in that spot at all.
All right, this doesn't go in ugly. It's just more of an update, but USC ain't exactly cruising right now. USC's up 21-17 over Arizona State midway through the 3rd quarter, and Caleb Williams just threw a pick in the end zone.
It's his first in 18 quarters.
That's fine, but buddy, this is a team just fired their coach. So USC needs to look a little sharper than this.
Yeah, there's 7 minutes left in the 3rd, but you're right. That was a very bad interception. They just showed the replay. Like, that was. There's a couple of bads I'll get to real quick. The work ahead of Venables, I already said it earlier, but I think it's a lot more daunting than we may have realized, and fans will have to give them time. Arkansas just continues to be exactly what I said they're going to be. They're okay. They're good physically up front defensively, but their quarterback can't throw and they can't scare you down the field.
Bryce Young getting hurt is one I put on the bad list, but since I put it there, it came out tonight that I think he's going to be all right, but hopefully he is. All right. The Humbled. This is the Humbled group. This is the group that came into Saturday with big plans and big ideas and big everything, and they got humbled. And number one,
I have one you may have forgotten for the good list. What about Michigan over Iowa? Because we talked about their offense.
I don't know what's good about that. Like they did fine.
But didn't you say that if they scored 21 points, you're like, okay, Michigan's offense is good, and they scored nearly 28. They scored 27.
I mean, I don't know if I said that I would say they were good. I mean, like they went out and they won a game. They played like Michigan ought to play. They handled Iowa.
If we're going to get on teams like USC or Georgia or whatnot, we do have to give credit to teams taking care of business.
I didn't want to like bring it up.
I don't think they showed anything that like spectacular. I mean,
I don't think spectacular, but like I didn't want to be the one to bring it up right now. I was going to bring it up at the end just because like it's always like Kayce bring up Michigan. The thing is that like they scored on the first 4 of their 5 drives, and Iowa's scoring defense was leading the nation coming into that game. So by no means is it like jumping off the page like they're the best team in the country, but for what the shit that Michigan has taken, like they did handle that game. Blake Corum had another really good game, and Michigan put up 327 yards on a defense that was not giving up that much. So
also we came into this game saying like, oh, this may be one of those sneaky games, like it's in Kinnick, and you weren't the only one saying that, Brandon. But then Michigan went in there and they weren't not up by 2 scores for at any point after the second quarter. I mean, very impressive by Michigan. I would say, but yeah, very impressive. And that's what they needed to do. And they'll move on.
Yeah. I mean,
also, you forgot a team in the bad.
Who did I forget?
Well, the team we're talking about, just add one more word.
Oh yeah.
Michigan State.
So thank you. Thank you. I was going to say Central Michigan, but okay. Yeah, Michigan State again. They are. That's a good word. They're bad. Yep. And Maryland, not a bad football team. I'd love to take credit because I did in the summer. I said this is the biggest upset of the year in the Big Ten. Maryland's going to beat Michigan State, and when we got here, it's not an upset. They're just a lot better. Michigan State. Did you see, Jack, when I tweeted today during the Mississippi State A&M game? I was talking about
this is so good.
I was talking about Jimbo, and I said. The tweet was, I can't believe they're paying $95 million for this shit. That's it. And I was talking about Jimbo Fisher and A&M. I wasn't even watching another game. And Michigan State fans destroyed the mentions. They were like, oh, yada, 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 Mel Tucker, Tuck coming, all this stuff. Like, guys, I wasn't even talking about you.
You followed it up with, this is like an incredible self-own.
Yeah.
It's like, it is that ultimate, like, when you think somebody's talking about you, but they're not, like, I'm talking about like in person, you think somebody's gossiping about you and you go up and you're like, you have something to say to me. And they're like, well, no, we weren't talking about you at all. But while you have the floor open, that's the way that it felt to me. It was very funny.
Oh,
go ahead.
No, it's just I sat in that chair and I was called stupid all off season. And then I said in that chair over there that I'm looking at right now, the fourth mic, I said that they were going to go 2-6, and that was laughed at. And they're about to go 2-6. They're a pathetic team. They're pathetic, but congrats on getting a low 4-star defensive back in the class of 2024, guys.
All right.
I have another bad, but I don't know. I mean, Minnesota was not good tonight.
Can y'all let me do my list? The humbled list. The list of teams that came in today feeling themselves, thinking this year was special, and they got absolutely humbled. And leading that list has to be the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Oh, my
Minnesota is feeling it. They go on the road. They kill Michigan State. They're ranked. It looks like the rest of the Big Ten and West is going by the wayside. It looks like they might have that division to themselves. And all they got to do is handle business at home against Purdue. And Purdue just handles them. Just absolutely from start to finish. Ends up winning the game, I think 20-10. But Minnesota, for everything you've got to play for everything that you put yourself in position for at home to score 10 points against Purdue, who lost on the road to Syracuse, who lost at home to Penn State, and Purdue's not a bad football team. Don't get me wrong. They probably are the best team in the Big Ten West as of right now. Minnesota, that was an all-time shit down your leg moment because you had everything in front of you and just let it go.
Yeah, it was not a pretty situation. And I guess the reason I was saying it was bad is like I still, even though I was very high on Minnesota to win that division, it's like Minnesota. I feel like Minnesota fans aren't necessarily humbled by that because they're still so down bad just because of being a Minnesota fan in their lifetime. It didn't feel like it was like humble because they were like, well, of course we lost this game.
The second humble team, and they're, I don't know how humble they are because they're pulling what Arkansas pulled last week. And even though they lost, they're still saying we were the better team. We're 3 touchdowns better than Ole Miss. We're better. We beat ourselves. I don't know if that makes you feel better, Kentucky fans, but you still went on the road in your first, your second test, your test against Florida, but you went on a big test on the road and Ole Miss beat you. Ole Miss with Jackson Dart, who didn't play well. Kentucky, as a top 10 team, goes on the road and gets beat. If you have a first-round quarterback, Will Levis, he's going to make plays at some point that shows he's a first-round quarterback, and they just never, ever, ever come with that guy.
Well,
yes,
not
Jack.
only do the
Jack
plays.
looks like he's about to say something. Jack?
No. I agree with you.
You had a look on your face. I can tell when you get ready to go. Sorry, Kayce.
No, I was going to say, not only does he need to make plays, he can't make the mistakes that he made down the stretch of that game.
Yeah, he fumbled twice. He fumbled twice with the game on the line.
In the final 3 minutes of the game, I mean, I understand, if you want to make yourself feel better and say, well, look, if we're Kentucky, you're a Kentucky fan, we were in the position and he made mistakes. That's part of the football game. And Ole Miss's defense, who had not been playing well throughout the game, stepped up, got those 2 turnovers in the final minutes of the game and won the game. So if you're the number 1 overall draft pick, you can't be making those mistakes in games that are that close in conference. You can't do it.
There is a phenomenon this year of the incredibly fraudulent top 10 team from the SEC. Florida beat Utah and then jumped up to number 12, and they shouldn't have, and they were exposed quickly. Arkansas gets up to number 7 last week, and they're just nowhere near the 7th best team in the country. They're just not. I'm sorry, they're a solid team, but they're not. They should not be in the top 7. Kentucky gets to number 7. Solid team, good defense. Chris Rodriguez is fantastic, and Will Levis is not bad, but that is just not a top 10 team by any stretch of the imagination. And then Ole Miss, who beat Kentucky today, will be top 10 tomorrow, and they're not a top 10 team. The SEC is 2 elite teams and then a bunch of decent teams. Wow. Mississippi State and A&M and Ole Miss and LSU and Auburn and Tennessee and Kentucky and Florida, they're all in the same spot this year, and they're all going to take turns beating each other. And Arkansas, all these teams.
Yeah, I don't know who Ole Miss plays next week.
It's a nobody. I think they were going to start 6-0 because their schedule was so bad.
But that's where it's like, so when does that like domino effect stop? Because I mean, you just went through all the teams. You also forgot to mention, here's a cell phone. Forgot to mention A&M was just there at the beginning of the year, and they should not have been there. So every week it keeps happening. But at some point, one team outside of Alabama in the SEC West has to end up there or close to there.
No, I think you're just going to see back and forth all year in the SEC West. You're going to see the second best team be like 4-4. Like you might just have Alabama at 8-0 and then a bunch of 4-4s or however math works out.
I actually feel pretty bad for Kentucky fans because they were right there multiple times today and they just couldn't do it. And I mean, that play where it was like a procedure penalty or something where Will Levis threw the touchdown that you thought won the game, but there was the penalty called before the play. It's just brutal. And then, yeah, you got to feel bad.
But Jack, if you are a top 10 team with a top 5 pick at quarterback, you win that game. You win that game. And the fact that you didn't, maybe you weren't those things that people said you were. Okay, a couple more humble teams, and then we'll get to something else. Washington on Friday night, it wasn't as bad. They ended up coming back a little bit. It looked like they were going to get their doors blown off. They ended up fixing that. Florida State, I don't think they embarrassed themselves, but I think they did see that, okay, we're not as far along as the undefeated start made us think that we were. Wake Forest is better than us right now. And you'll settle into what Florida State was always going to be maybe this year, an 8-4 team, and not flirting to be like a 10-2 team like they were.
If you're a Florida State fan, I mean, like you said, they didn't embarrass themselves, but like you still have to be pretty. I want to say excited. No one's excited after a loss. Like that's just bullshit. But you can't be down too bad about it because they still are the.
You were 6.5-point favorites at home, and you got dominated, at least in my opinion. I know this game was on when your guys' game was on, but I would be like really bummed out if I was Florida State.
I'm interested to follow Wake in the gambling sphere in the last 6 weeks of the season because I just don't think there's a world where they should have been underdogs to Florida State.
No, bad. It was a bad loss for Florida State, no doubt. It's just like I wouldn't be just like I wouldn't be down horribly like a lot of these other teams are.
All right. In the ACC on Saturday, here are your scores. Boston College gets off the mat and wins a game that Brandon Walker said Boston College money line at plus 400. Boston College 34, Louisville 33. You can always count on this Satterfield and Louisville to absolutely shit the bed, no matter what they did the week before. Number 22, Wake Forest 31. Number 23, Florida State 21. Virginia Tech goes to North Carolina and gets the shit kicked out of them. North Carolina 41, Virginia Tech 10. Syracuse 59-0 over Wagner, a game that actually had 10-minute running clock quarters in the second half.
God, that's sad.
Yeah. Why are they playing so Wagner this deep in the season? You got Clemson 30, NC State 20 in the top 10 matchup. Duke 38. Duke is not bad. Duke is not. They're probably going to win their division. They're probably going to win the Coastal. Duke 38, Virginia 17, Georgia Tech.
You take that back.
Whoa.
Do y'all know? Hold on. I was going to mention the Coastal in a minute. Do y'all realize how bad the Coastal is? Here are the teams in the Coastal, everybody. Duke, North Carolina, probably the two teams that will end up playing for the division. Virginia Tech, god-awful. Pitt, embarrassing loss tonight. Miami, we see where they're at right now. Georgia Tech, and Virginia, who just lost to Duke by 3 touchdowns.
Miami is the only team that hasn't played an ACC team.
The winner, and that's fine, but the way they played against Middle Tennessee State,
it ain't
going to go well for them. So Duke and North Carolina is going to be for that division.
I hate it.
I mean, Pitt can still. I mean, they're only 0-1.
Jack, I understand the thought process. They're only 0-1. They lost at home to Georgia Tech. You cannot lose at home to Georgia Tech and get to where you want to go in a season. That's just Georgia Tech is they're Colorado in the Pac-12. Like they're that bad.
Yeah. Maybe Miami can get off the mat too, but yeah, you're right.
I mean, look,
no, you're right.
In the ACC, in the ACC, the 5 best teams are all in the Atlantic Division. The Coastal, Duke, Carolina, Virginia Tech, Pitt, Miami, Georgia Tech, and Virginia. Like that ain't great. We move on.
Katie's just so pure. I hate it. Like that was just.
It's a mix of like Quiggs came and he was here for the Clemson State game, and I was rooting for State at that point just for anti-Clemson. I was like, we both agreed, Duke not terrified, but like oh shit, I have to play Duke kind of State. Like,
they lost to Kansas, but they're well coached. This Elko might be a dude.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, you know what? You know where I wish Mike Elko still was?
Texas A&M.
Yeah. Nice to have him back on that defense.
In the Big 12, TCU 55, number 18, Oklahoma 24. It's just when you talk about ranking Kansas, they're going to run into some problems because TCU is probably going to get in before them. There's another team.
They should
remember that should get in before them. Hell, we might get in. LSU might get in.
Kansas.
Kansas State 37, Texas Tech 28. Iowa State loses to Kansas 14-11. Oklahoma State goes on the road 36-25 win over Baylor, and Texas 38, West Virginia 20 in the Big Ten.
Did that loss, the West Virginia loss, expedite Neil Brown's firing? Or do you think it was a good enough of a game?
I don't think anybody expects them to go to Texas and win the game, so I don't know that one does it. And I've heard they're going to have problems with money firing the so they're interested to watch. Michigan on the road 27-14 winner over Iowa. Purdue 20, Minnesota 10, number 21 Minnesota 10, Illinois 34, Wisconsin 10 in Madison. Maryland 27. The artist formerly known as Michigan State 13. Tuck is coming. Penn State in an ugly rain-soaked game, 17-7 over Northwestern. God bless anybody who had to watch that. Ohio State 49, Rutgers 10, and Nebraska 35, Indiana 21. All right. In the Pac-12, we still have Arizona's putting the finishing touches on an easy win over Colorado. USC now
Colorado is so bad.
Now 28-17 over Arizona State. Oregon destroying. You know what? We talk about Neil Brown. We talk about Brian Harsin. You tell me when David Shaw is going to get fired at Stanford, because they're a dead stick right now.
It has to be.
Oregon
Time has to be running out.
Oregon 31, Stanford 3 at the half. UCLA, of course, won 40-32 over Washington Friday night. Utah 42, Oregon State 16. Utah probably crashing the top 10 party once again. Washington State 28, Cal 9. And we finish in God's country, the SEC, which is where South Carolina beat South Carolina State 50-10 the other night. Ole Miss 22-19 over Kentucky. Alabama 49-26 winner at Arkansas. Mississippi State 42, number 17, Texas A&M 24. LSU 21-17 over the rotting corpse of Auburn. And Georgia 26-22 win over Missouri. Now, that was fun. Are y'all ready for who won the weekend, who lost the weekend shit list?
Of course, Brandon. Are you?
Is there anything to add before we get there?
I mean, Katie asked this in the group, but we didn't talk about Auburn and LSU. Do you think this could potentially be the end of Brian Harsin tomorrow morning?
I think the end has already happened behind the scenes. I think it was just a matter of time to find out. But yeah, I think the college football story du jour tomorrow could be Brian. There's an opening at Auburn. Yes.
Yeah, I
was 17-0 lead.
I was potentially going to put that in who lost the week. Is the only reason I didn't bring up Brian Harsin, but I'll do a different one. I think that it's just like an obvious thing. I mean, it's all the offseason stuff and that game. I mean, and Katie, I think you tweeted it or maybe it was Jack. Somebody did that. Just every time the camera goes to Brian Kelly, like he looks miserable. Excuse me. That game, just like anytime they showed either coach until the very end, both of them look like they hate their lives.
Hey. LSU's 2-0 in the SEC with two pretty decent wins.
I'm not saying what LSU. I'm saying Brian Kelly looks like he hates being there.
Yeah, it's just like we clowned them, and it seems like that's the team that I'm not saying they can beat Alabama or anything like that, but they're not a bad squad.
No. Yeah, no. I mean, they beat Auburn. It wasn't a pretty game, but I'm just saying, like Brian, like that between Brian Harsin and Brian Kelly, neither coach looked happy to be where they were.
Brian Kelly just has a sour face anyway.
He's Irish Catholic. He's an Irish Catholic.
If you killed a kid before, you'd probably be that way too.
Well, that's a good point.
One game I think we not talked about enough, but the BYU game. I know they ended up winning by 12, but I think at halftime it was tied versus Utah State, and Utah State is not good this year.
Yeah,
it took them a while to get off the mat.
It's one of those sleepwalking games that you count as a win before you even go into it, and I think they'll be fine. I think they have Notre Dame next. Like it was a look ahead spot, so I don't really fault them too much. All right. Kayce Smith, we will allow you to go first. Who won the week?
I'm going to be a good team player here because I think that two of the answers that are pretty obvious will be taken by other esteemed colleagues of mine on this podcast. So I'm going to go outside of the box. I'm going to take, and now I realize that this is a little bit risky because this game is still going on, but because I think the obvious answers will be taken, I am going to say, I think Lincoln Riley won the weekend. I think that, everything we mentioned with OU, just how bad they looked. He's clearly not the problem. He obviously wasn't perfect at OU, but the way that they got beat and everything that we thought about OU going into this season, it was like, was Lincoln Riley the problem? Right now they're, in the fourth quarter, they're winning. OU embarrassed themselves, got their shit kicked in, and he just gets to say like, hey, I got out of Norman. I went to USC, not my problem anymore. Brent Venables, it's your problem. And it was not the only issue. So I think Lincoln Riley kind of rectified his name for anybody who thought that he was the only issue with the Oklahoma Sooners.
Jack McGuire, who won the weekend?
UConn won the weekend.
Oh,
First win
I thought you were going to say
against
TCU.
an-
That's why I didn't say that.
against an FBS opponent. Fresno State came into the rent, and people were like, "Oh, same old UConn," because they got blown out by Michigan, and then NC State beat them by 28. And people were like, "Oh, this team's going to quit." They didn't, and they took it to Fresno State. The defense looked great. Shout out to UConn. Shout out to Jim Moore. It seems like it's actually going to be a program that's not awful anymore. There's still a long way to go, but their win total was 2.5, and they won today, second one of the season. They still have FIU and UMass to go. So shout out to the UConn Huskies.
Katie, statistics. Who won the weekend?
I'm going to go with Sonny Dykes. I think that as a new first-year head coach, he beat the old team SMU, then go to Oklahoma. I mean, yes, I don't think you could say regardless of what happens the rest of the year, just in case they go over, but just for a first-year head coach in a very convoluted conference, making a name for himself very quickly and very well.
All right.
Brandon Walker, who won the weekend.
The Clemson Tigers won the weekend. Like I said earlier, I'll expand on it now a little bit. I think they're the closest team to a playoff berth in the entire country. They have gotten through their two toughest games with wins. Wake Forest and NC State are the second and third best teams in the ACC. Clemson just beat them both. They now have to focus on a schedule that includes Florida State and Miami. Not going to be the mountains to climb that they've already climbed. They are the closest to a playoff berth in the country because they have got their toughest games in the rear view. They are playing DJ the way they ought to play him. They're using his legs. They're using his arm. They figured things out. I think Clemson, if it were a race to the playoff, I would have them in first place right now. Not the number one team in the country, just they would be leading the race to the playoff because of the wins they have in the bank already. Now, Kayce Smith, who lost the weekend?
Brandon Walker, I am going to take the baton from you in this relay from what you just said. You said that you would not put Clemson as the number one team in the country, but you would put them ahead in the race. Who lost the weekend is blank is the best team in the country. So if you want to put Georgia there, even though they won, I think that what we saw this weekend was that there is not a clear best team in the country. Ohio State handled their business. You can make that argument. Alabama handling their business. Leading into week 5, I think majority of people, what we saw with voters was Georgia is the best team in the country. And then there's a close second, a close 2A, 2B, and then everybody else. Now you can make a bunch of different arguments. Even the fact that you put Clemson at ahead of that race, I think that the argument of blank is the best team in the country lost the weekend because I don't think that there's a definitive answer.
Jack McGuire, who lost the weekend?
Brent Venables, I said it earlier, there's a lot of soul searching that needs to go on there. We were told that he was this defensive mastermind, and he went in with, at worst, the top 40, top 35 talented defense in the country. And he has embarrassed, I don't know. Maybe his concepts are so hard to grasp. I don't know. But yeah, that was really, really embarrassing. It wasn't like the offense couldn't move the ball. He was supposed to change the culture, and he can still do it. But right now, it ain't there. It ain't there, brother.
Katie Stats.
It ain't there, brother.
Who lost the weekend?
I'm probably gonna have to go with Pittsburgh. It's not my favorite, but I think it's gonna go under the radar. They were a ranked team. They lost everything last year. They're kind of like, okay, we can still do it. Just losing to Georgia Tech, you just can't. All the wind is out of the sails right now. So it's tough to move on.
All right.
Brandon Walker, who lost the weekend.
I hate to double down, but I think I have a couple points that he didn't make. It's Brent Venables at Oklahoma. It's when you get hired to have your first coaching job, there's a natural questioning process and there's a natural maturation process. Is this guy supposed to be a head coach? Does he know what he's doing? Well, Brent Venables probably in the long run does know what he's doing. He's going to build something. However, if you lose to Kansas State 1 week at home, there's got to be a competitor, a fire in you. You got to be able to rally the troops. There's got to be something inherent in a head coach that doesn't let his team do that twice. And you go on the road and it's worse. You go on the road and you're down immediately. You go on the road and a team that is not as talented as you at pretty much any position on the field is absolutely bossing you around the field. That shows a lack of something. I can't put my finger on it, but you go to Oklahoma, it's not like starting your career at Rutgers. It's not like starting your coaching career at Iowa State. You go to Oklahoma, they have massive expectations from the jump. And the second you lose those expectations, you risk losing the fan base. It's too early to talk about losing the fan base, but games like they turned in the last 2 weeks are the recipe to do it. Brent Venables lost the week. Now,
You know, we just did, me, you, and Jack just did was our who won the weekend and who lost the weekend was that meme between Lincoln Riley and Brent Venables. It was like simpatico, whatever that word is.
all right. Do you have a shit list?
I do. I'm wondering if it's going to be yours because you were very, very visibly upset. So stop me if it's yours.
Go ahead.
Is it going to be Jaden Hazelwood?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, okay. Now at this point, whenever we were streaming, when this moment happened in the Alabama-Arkansas game, I was already a dead person, lights on, no one's home. A&M was just embarrassing left and right. I was just dead, numb. What happened at the end of the Alabama-Arkansas game, which Alabama was very clearly going to win, no questions, they dominated. The number was 17.5. I think it closed maybe a little bit less than that. They had fourth down. They were inside the
10.
the 15, the 10.
Yeah.
And Jaden Hazelwood, the wide receiver for Arkansas, was so clearly in position to get a first down, to get the backdoor cover. And I have never seen a lack of effort. And I understand the game was over and I understand you kids want to throw in the towel. I could have gotten that first down. You could have gotten that first down. The homeless person with one leg on the end of my block here could have gotten that first down. And he just didn't even try. I'm shocked he even caught the ball. And you fell to the ground. You know, Dave made the video. Bettors across the stratosphere were freaking out because it wasn't even like it was a bad beat because something weird happened in the game. This guy just simply didn't try. So my shit list is, even if you don't give a shit about betting, even if you don't care about backdoor covers and point spreads and all that, to not even try to get a first down that was so clearly given to you because your team is getting beat is just soft. Like you that's a diva move. Just get the first down, maybe put some points on the board, maybe not, but he just quit. And I hate seeing that shit.
All right. Well said. Well stated. Jack McGuire, do you have a shit list?
Yes. This was something that got brought to my attention like 3 hours after it happened, but it was just, we all have issues with targeting. We have issues with how the refs handle it, how kids get kicked out for an entire game, maybe even the first half of the next game for something they clearly didn't mean to do, or the intention wasn't to clearly target. And the rule needs to be changed. But today there was an unfortunate incident, and it seems as if the guy is at least okay on LSU. They released a statement that he's doing better. He went to the hospital and whatnot. But on the opening kickoff, and he got stretchered off like on the cart, where it's like the worst thing that can happen in football. It makes you think, why do I even watch this sport if these guys have serious spinal injuries? Yeah. But as he was getting carted off, the refs, literally as he was getting put from the where he got injured and then to the cart was going to go underneath the stadium, the ref said, after further review, it has been determined that number one committed targeting, and he will be and it will be a 15-yard penalty. He didn't say ejected. I mean, he should have said, or he shouldn't have, but he was clearly ejected. I think that could have been handled differently. I understand
that was a bad read the moment.
I understand that you have to call it, and why you call targeting so heavily is because you don't want those situations to happen, but you could have let the cart get underneath the stadium. I don't even think you really needed to, like it was, I guess it's a penalty, but I think the situation could have been handled. Like if that was like my kid or something, even the Auburn fans were booing the ref. It was a penalty on LSU because they were just like, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah,
So
all time bad.
it was just, I mean, I know there's a lot of things going on a football field at once, but that's just something that's like, if someone's down on the field for 5 to 10 minutes, like let's try to handle this with like a diamond gloves or whatever you call them.
Katie Stats, do you have one?
Yeah. Touch on reiterating Jack's from last week about the Aaron Judge cutting in. Sick of that. Tired. But then I think for this week, this is really petty. Really petty. I don't know what it is, but Drinkwitz was chewing gum on the sideline and would not shut his mouth. And it was the grossest thing. And it made me want Mizzou to lose because I don't know what it was. I couldn't stop watching it. He was chewing it with his mouth open. I think like whenever you see fans and people with like gum in their mouth and they're chewing and it's open and just like exaggerating, like it looked like he was like cracked out on Adderall. It made me was rooting for Georgia because I was like, I need to shut this man up. And I want Mizzou to win. Even though I had all the bets on Georgia and Mizzou team total under, I want chaos. And that one thing, it just gave me such an ick. And I was like, I want you and your team to lose.
I'm about to say the shit list presented by Katie Stats, ick.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I have a lack of other shit lists, so this is what I'm landing
Right.
on.
No,
but I was going through
love
my
it. I
Twitter
love a
feed to
good-
see what I was commenting on. I was just like, I couldn't stop watching it. It was just gross.
Brandon Walker, do you have a
I-
shit list?
I don't have a full one, so I'm going to give you 2 mini ones that aren't fully
Okay.
fleshed out takes, but they're 2 small mini ones. Number one, and I won't take long. I don't know why I noticed it tonight or if it's been this bad, but Clemson and NC State on national TV was handled a lot like an NFL game as far as the pacing goes. First of all, there were a lot of reviews that was made choppy gameplay. It was review, play, review, play, review, play. That was bad. But then ESPN or ABC or whoever it was did this thing with Clemson and NC State tonight where it would be touchdown, commercial, come back, kickoff, then another commercial. And then like they just destroyed the rhythm of the game. And I hate when TV does that. Like if you're gonna have these games televised, let them at least have a football game rhythm. And they didn't do it. Now my second one, it didn't end up hurting TCU, so it doesn't make a full shit list, but TCU was the victim of 2 of the worst no calls I've ever seen today that Jack put out on Twitter. A pass interference where an Oklahoma guy, hell, it might have been even targeting. He got there early and then got up doing this, and it was one of the worst missed calls I've ever seen, only to be bettered a couple of minutes later when TCU called a punt, just called a punt, and officials stopped the play, said he signaled for a fair catch. His hands never got above his waist, and it was just in these big marquee games, officials need to be better. Officials don't have any excuse to be that bad. And what Jack said on Twitter was right. Hey, officials, Oklahoma's leaving you. They're leaving the Big 12, so you don't have to protect them anymore. You can stop that. That memo needs to be passed down from the Big 12. Stop giving them preferential treatment.
That was a very funny tweet, Jack.
That is my.
Thanks.
Brandon,
to reiterate, I think that's the one thing the NFL has a clear advantage on college football is the length of games. Big games on ESPN are 4 hours sometimes. NFL, like, I mean, most of them are 3 hours. So
yeah, they have their product figured out as far as pacing goes, and college football doesn't. It's weird. All right, so there you go. That is week 5 of Unnecessary Roughness, and we got a lot of matchups next week which we'll get to. Maybe I think we're recording a day early. We might release it a day early. We're gonna have to record on Monday, guys.
Yeah, you got the dozen tournament, right?
I got the dozen tournament in Philly on Tuesday night.
Your tournament, aka the Brandon Walker tournament.
Correct. So there it is. That's Unnecessary Roughness. Kayce, you good?
I'm great.
Jack, you good?
I'm great.
Stats, you good?
See you in Rutgers on Friday.
All right. We will be at Rutgers on Friday night in Piscataway. My name is Brandon Walker, and that is Unnecessary Roughness.